Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Susan McGuire, Manager of Professional Development at ACCE, and I'm happy to welcome you to today's webinar. Today, we'll hear from a panel of experts on Chamber of Commerce dashboards. Our panel will be facilitated by our own Sarah Melby, ACCE Director of Information and Research, and will also include Tony Felker, President and CEO of the Frisco Chamber of Commerce, and Jody Perry, President and CEO of the Richland Area Chamber of Commerce. Sarah, Tony, and Jody will share how chambers of commerce are creating and using dashboard reports to provide concise and timely information to their staffs and boards, set goals, and track changes in financial and programmatic functions. Before I turn the program over to our panel, we have a few housekeeping notes. First, attendees are in listen-only mode during the webinar to avoid background noise. Second, after the presentation, we will have time for questions. And you can ask those questions by using the question function on the webinar panel. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of your webinar panel screen. Just type in your question, and I will read the question to our panel at the end of their presentation. If we run out of time and don't get to your question, or if you have a question that you would prefer to discuss with any of the panelists individually, please feel free to contact one of the panelists. Their contact information will be provided in the presentation. And we can also get in touch with you afterwards. If you've typed in a question and we run out of time, we will get back with you individually. Third, the webinar is being recorded, and it should be up on the ACCE website on the ACC University webpage by Monday, May 1st. And towards the end of the webinar, I will tell you a little bit more about how to get to that webinar page. Finally, the presentation slides for the webinar and a separate handout are both uploaded to the webinar panel that you'll see on the right of your screen. So scroll down to handouts and click on one of those documents to download it. If you prefer to wait until after the webinar to download the presentation or the handout, that's totally fine. The presentation will be posted along with the webinar recording. So with all of that, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. First, Sarah Melby is ACCE's Director of Information and Research and manages the HERO team, which provides help, expertise, and resources online to ACCE's members. Sarah has been with ACCE for 4 years and is a digital research librarian who worked in public and academic libraries before joining ACCE. She really enjoys helping ACCE's members connect to the information they need to help them accomplish more in their daily work. Jody Perry, IOM, has served as president of the Richland Area Chamber of Commerce in Mansfield, Ohio since July of 2014. Prior to this position, she led the Greece, New York Chamber of Commerce and the Van Wert, Ohio Chamber of Commerce, and she served on the staff at the Ashland, Ohio Chamber of Commerce as well. She also worked as the Deputy Chief Clerk for the U.S. Senate Banking Committee. Jody received her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and Religion from Ashland University in Ashland, Ohio. In 2008, Jody graduated from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Institute for Organizational Management. She's active in the community and currently serves on several area boards of directors. She's chair of the Board of Regents for the Midwest Institute for Organization Management and secretary for the Chamber of Commerce Executives of Ohio. So welcome, Jody. Tony Felker, IOM CCE, serves as the president and CEO of the Frisco, Texas Chamber of Commerce. A 12-year veteran of the Chamber of Commerce industry, he received his IOM from West Institute in 2009 and his CCE in 2014. During his 8-year tenure as president and CEO, he's helped lead the Frisco Chamber of Commerce through the U.S. Chamber accreditation process, where the Chamber received a 4-star accreditation rating in its first submission in November 2014. Before working with the Frisco Chamber, Tony conducted business in the real estate finance industry. Tony earned a Bachelor of Business in Marketing and a Bachelor of Journalism both from the University of Texas at Austin. He's a graduate of the University of Oklahoma Economic Development Institute and is working on pursuing his CECD designation. He sits on the Board of Regents for the Institute of Organization Management and on the boards for the Texas Chamber of Commerce Executives, the Texas Association of Business, and the North Texas Chamber of Commerce Executives Association. He's an ex officio board member for the Frisco Convention and Visitors Bureau. So welcome, Tony, welcome, Jody and Sarah. And with that, I will now pass the program over to Sarah.
Thanks so much, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today to give you more information about dashboard reports. And thanks again to Jody and Tony, too. We're excited to hear about your expertise and experience. So the area I'd like to start with you thinking about is to measure is to know. So keep that in your mind through this webinar. But also think about what a dashboard looks like. So think about your car. That's a great place to start. And what does it look like? What does it tell you? What essentials are in that dashboard? Now do the same for your organization. It's helpful to sketch out the essentials of what you need to know about how your organization is performing and decide how often you need to check the performance. So just like a car dashboard, a dashboard report will show you what you need to know about how your chamber is performing. A dashboard report can be a very effective tool for communicating a lot of information about your chamber's performance in a simple, easy to digest layout, just like a car dashboard. While many dashboard reports contain visual elements, they can take the form of a spreadsheet or a series of infographics or something in between. What your report looks like and its length will be determined by its focus, whether it's a dashboard for communications and social media or financial markers or membership data, and also factor in your audience, which could range from only your board of directors to your entire membership. So starting broadly and then adding in more measurements as you enhance your reporting techniques is a great way to go. A dashboard, these are some pointers, offers a quick at-a-glance visual tool that displays vital information about your chamber. It's also a form of business intelligence. It can be flexible in the depth of information that a report provides, from again, broad overview to providing more details to track progress. It conveys real-time information, metrics, financials, or usage. It can measure overall organization details and can measure specific areas like social media, communications, web metrics, membership stats, and financial data, or a combination of all of this, which you'll see with both Tony and Jody's dashboard reports. Again, a dashboard helps you monitor your chamber's overall health and identify problem areas or successes. You'll see this demonstrated with Tony's report in red, green, and yellow light go functions. You can also use a dashboard report to help you with strategic planning and decision making. And Jody will touch on that as well as Tony. A dashboard report can easily be constructed with different software tools, like one you probably already have, such as Microsoft Excel or even Google Documents. A dashboard will change and evolve over time, depending on your chamber, the technology at hand, programs and initiatives at your chamber, and your membership and your community. So this is a slide thanks to Jody Perry from her presentation at Savannah Convention last year on measuring your success. Some of you might have been there. And what can you measure? So data. So thanks, Jody. Jody's going to talk about this and how this these data points translate to her own dashboard report. And then here again is what gets measured gets improved. So to measure is to know, and also to measure gets improved. So again, you can use Excel to produce a spreadsheet, and Jody will talk about that as well as Tony. They both use Excel. You can also use Excel to create a graphic report or include a combination of tables and graphs. We also recommend that you can pull charts and graphs from dynamic chamber benchmarking, the operations survey reports, the chamber profile, as well as salary reports. And then we also have samples that you can download from ACCE's samples library. And our handout actually includes links for all of these resources online. So I'm going to briefly talk about the 5 easy steps for creating a dashboard. This comes directly from the Ask ACCE Hero article in the Winter 2017 Chamber Executive Magazine. So you can determine what to measure. That's the first place. Many chambers collect data related to membership growth and retention, market penetration, dues performance, revenue, expenses, social media, again, as we've been mentioning, event participation, and I think Jody mentioned that is an area she's going to be measuring more, legislative successes, and basically you name it. So you can start by reviewing those dashboard examples in the samples library, and we'll pop over there here in a little bit. And you can use these examples to help you decide and define what you might want to measure at your chamber. A couple of questions. Ask yourself what the most important metrics are for your chamber. Again, whether that might be revenue, membership growth, or tourism. And what top level performance measures does your board or staff ask for every month? A dashboard might be periodic, might be monthly, might be quarterly, and it might be annual. Again, you decide what works best for your chamber and your audience. And then you, again, starting broadly will help you with a baseline. And then you can add in or augment your dashboard report with other key metrics. Then you also want to determine frequency. So as I mentioned, will it be monthly, quarterly, or annual? And Tony and Jody will touch on that as well. Which option best suits your audience? And if your primary objective is to measure against goals laid out in your program of work, you can adopt that same timetable for your dashboard reporting. Most effective dashboards will use a comparison over a period of time, and that is also where dynamic chamber benchmarking, the survey data, can come into play with the trends reports or the annual reports that you can easily download from the operations and salary survey sections. And then step 3 would be, of course, to gather your data. So you can easily collect your revenue, expenses, and membership data, again, from the operations survey in dynamic chamber benchmarking. And you can also use DCB, as I call it, to create charts and graphs for your report. But then we also recommend taking a look at the software that your chamber uses and collect the data points that are available to you. So it's a good idea to look at your database, your customer relationship management system, and again, using that for data, membership data, event registration, and more. And it's a good idea to ask your vendor what's available. So use your database CRM for support to find out what you can easily pull down. A lot of chambers also use Google Analytics, and you can set up a free Google account to obtain these stats and charts on web traffic. And that also represents trends over time. And then also gathering data from your email marketing and social media. So basic stats are available from your email marketing provider and social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So it's, again, depending on what you want to measure, and then dive in and learn from each of these platforms about how to obtain the stats. So then number 4 would be gather feedback. Do your metrics help tell the chamber's story in the dashboard? Does it help you measure your performance? Are you able to make inferences over time on membership retention and market penetration? And it's worth noting that it's important to measure the pieces of data that are essential to your selected audience. So your audience might be your board, it might be your staff, it might be your annual membership, it might be a committee or a couple of committees, it might be your city, your county, really whoever your constituents are and who you want to display this report and provide this report to. And then number 5 is finding that right format. So do you want the visual report, or do you want a combination of words and calculations or figures, or that, again, combination? Do you want a simple one-page breakdown or an elaborate infographic style report? Again, we have several examples in the samples library under the dashboard report category, and I'll show you that here as well. And then consider what type of report is the most effective for sharing your data with your audience. And then we also have this one-page guide that you can download either from the link right here in the handout. We also have this on the ACCE Chamberpedia page for annual and financial reports. So, and that includes an entire section on dashboards. So again, these are just thinking of it in terms of a car. You've got basic model, mid-level, and luxury components. And then you'll see that demonstrated with the reports from both Tony and Jody. So now we're going to actually see these dashboard reports in action. And again, we want to welcome Jody Perry from the Richland Area Chamber in Ohio. And so we'll be demonstrating these samples as Jody talks. So welcome, Jody, and thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through my dashboard and how I created it, basically. So we have been using this dashboard here in Mansfield for about 2 years, and I created it because I did a kind of a scan at that time, and I wasn't finding a dashboard that was tracking all of the things that I wanted to track in the format that I wanted to track. The first thing I want to note is kind of like when you take high school history and they tell you the Constitution is a living document. Well, my dashboard is very much a living document. I think Sarah has one of the earlier ones linked in as well. You would see differences on that versus the ones that what I have currently. And I'm always continuing to tinker with it. And I think that for me, yeah, right there, that is exactly. So that's the most current one I have. That's from March 2017 that you're looking at right now. And I even on that one, I added a few new things and am always kind of tinkering with it. I think that the big takeaway, or one of the big takeaways of doing this now for 2 years, is that what I want to measure and what I want to track does change depending on what's happening at our chamber. So just kind of to be technical for a moment, and all of this is linked on that page in the Chamberpedia, so you can actually download it and start using my format if you like. It's all in Excel, and the top page is that cool color printout. And then that's driven by a bunch of sheets behind it where I'm tracking the data. So, where I'm getting that, you'll see there's kind of 2 pages to what I track. I track a communications page, and then I'm tracking a page that looks at budget and membership and events. And so all of those are driven by these spreadsheets that Sarah is going through. I'm happy to afterwards, if you download this and you have questions about where I'm pulling these numbers from, please don't hesitate to give me a call or send me an email. I'd be happy to walk you through. But, Google Analytics is where I get my website stats, and then Facebook gives you a whole lot of stats. And I'm always kind of tinkering and watching the new things that they're tracking to see, what's the most important things, what are the relevant things for us. So when I started at this chamber, they had virtually no social media presence. So at the beginning, I was just tracking kind of what the dashboard came out of me just constantly signing in and looking at our statistics with social media and kind of watching like, okay, well, this did well. Our events are starting to go up. I'm starting to see a trend when all of this stuff works together. And I was tired of having to log in every month and look at it and then just have to refresh my memory. So I wanted a place that I could have it all in one shot. So that's what we've done with this. We look at 3 different pieces of Facebook. So we look at the new likes each month. We look at engagement and post reach. On Twitter, and I'll be honest with you, Twitter is the one that I'm still kind of figuring out exactly what data is meaningful. But we're looking at basically the data that they give you when you look at your Twitter analytics. Our website statistics, we're doing some website work right now, so I'm probably going to tweak that box a little bit. We're trying to get our page, or not our page views really, but our users and our sessions up, and doing some SEO optimization. So I'm probably going to put a little more emphasis on that, and I may have to drop one of the Twitter graphs for the time being to fit that on. Another thing that we added in the last year was Instagram followers. We added an Instagram about a year and a half ago, and Instagram is still adding more analytics, so I expect that that'll be an area that we'll be able to do a little bit of a deeper dive on as that kind of goes forward. And then, of course, just email open rates. We always want to watch that, obviously, to make sure that the number of emails isn't getting out of hand and that our open rates aren't dropping off the chart. So that's communications. And then the second page looks at membership. As you can kind of see, overall, we're holding steady. I mean, we're trending up, but it's slight, but it's an important change for us, and kind of what I walked into. We track new and dropped members. I present this to my board, so I always list out who has joined in the last month. So, if they know those owners, they can, say thank you if it's one of them that they have been working on. We also look at budget numbers. Of course, I present a full financial report, but, this is kind of the bottom line of where we're at. So the greens and the reds there are, green is good, red is off budget. So you'll see even this year, February we were off a little bit. Obviously, you don't freak out about 1 month at all, but in March we were back green again. We have 6 signature events for the year. Those are our largest fundraisers. So I also pull those out and just kind of say, were we over budget? Were we under budget? Where are we with this? And then we have a lot of events, as you can see there. So just tracking, how many people are registered to keep the board up to date, and then just an overall year to date. So I created this mostly for myself. I was not asked by our board to do this, but I wanted something easily trackable, and then I could kind of watch data and trends over time. And when I presented it to the board, a couple other the board members that have served on multiple chambers said, hey, this is really great, and it's not something I'm seeing other groups do. Thank you. And they've offered suggestions about improvements in that. So I think from a board member's perspective, they can kind of look at this and get an idea at a glance how healthy the chamber is. Events are good, budget's good, membership's good, and our communications is kind of driving all of that. And so obviously we give them a lot of other reports. The chamber is nothing if not death by reports, but I think that this has been an important tool that we have added. We're trying to think ahead as, I kind of talked about the website statistics might be things that we track a little differently in version, I don't even know what that would be, 3.0, 4.0 at this point. Another thing that we're looking at maybe adding in is kind of on those signature events, I'm presenting on budget numbers, but maybe tracking, attendance numbers, and just kind of watching trends over time, how those events are doing, so that if sometimes an event may still be producing money, but if your attendance is going down or things like that, that can help you assess whether it's time to refresh that event or pull it entirely from the lineup. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. The last thing I'll say is that, I should tell you, so I am putting this together each month at this point. Once I set it up, it takes me about 30 to 40 minutes probably every month to update it. I'm getting faster, but I continue to tinker. So I'd say, 40 minutes is an average for me. I do have to log into all of those sources of the data, pull it in, Once I set up the different charts, it's really just a couple clicks to update the chart. So the longest amount of time is spent pulling the data and inputting that into the different worksheets. Obviously, our budget numbers just come straight off our budget sheet, and a lot of the calculations are automatically in there at this point. So setting it up was the hardest part. If you want to take and borrow this, please do, and that'll save you a little bit of time on that end. But that is about what it takes me each month. I do hope eventually to have some staff helping me with it, but I haven't let go of it yet because I like to continue to look at it. The last thing I would say is later this year, we're looking at, we will be creating a strategic plan for the chamber, and I have in mind to maybe create a third page of the dashboard that would track metrics and progress against the strategic plan. So, I mean, I don't think it would replace the things on this. This dashboard is really kind of the guts of the chamber, but things that are specific to that strategic plan, that is my goal, is to do that. So if and when that gets done, I will be happy to share that. But that's kind of what I see as the next step from what I'm doing now. And I think at this point, I will turn it over to Tony, and he can tell you about his.
Thanks so much, Jody, and thank you to Susan and Sarah for letting us be on this panel here, and we appreciate your help on that. I'm probably going to step over and repeat some of the things that Jody said. I don't intend on doing that, but I think there's value in that so that everybody who's listening in can see the fact that while, much like in the chamber industry, as we've all heard, when you've met one chamber, you've met one chamber, different dashboard reports are different, and you go ahead and some of the things are going to be very similar and some of the things are going to be very much the same. When Jody presented her dashboard report, you saw it all put together nice and neat, and I'm going to try to take a little bit of a step back from that and mention the fact that ours has grown steadily over the 8 years that I've been in this position. As we're pulling up right now, I came in here in January of 2009 as president, and at the time, not only was the national economy and the state economy in trouble, but our economy was in, definitely we had some problems going on. And so I created it, much like Jody said, I created this mainly for myself to be able to give myself a quick dashboard report to see how we were doing. And as you guys will note as we scan down this, some of you might even say this doesn't even look like a dashboard report. And honestly, this was strictly done out of a Word document. Bullet points, every single bullet point in this dashboard is completely focused in on the dollars, because at that point in time, that was all that we were really focused in on. You'll see in here, we had payables that were going back almost a year. We had lines of credit out there. We had AR issues. We were in bad shape, and every single month we were looking at the numbers just to see if we were going to be coming around and still here a month later. So every single one of these focused in on an aspect of the dollars. And all this is, as I mentioned, is a Word document. I'd identified 9, 10 key components, and then from a visual perspective, just created a little dot to the right of it that's either red, yellow, or green. There's 1 or 2 green ones, a lot of yellow and a lot of red, but this gave us an instantaneous report. It was good for me, it was good for staff, and as I presented it to the board, I wanted to tell the board that we were going to be very transparent and upfront with them as to what the situation was. I didn't want them going into the budget and micromanaging it. I was on top of the situation. We were working it. I didn't want them necessarily going in and micromanaging it, but I wanted to give them a tool that would allow them to see what the situation is, whether it was good, bad, ugly. I was going to be right up front with them as to what the situation is and were we making progress on it or not. And I mentioned that this is at the very beginning. It's nothing more than Word documents. So some of you may have seen Jody's spreadsheet, their dashboard there with all the different Excel charts out there and said, my goodness, I'm never going to be able to do that. I can't even start to imagine what that's like. I would encourage everybody to get out there and try to just put something together. If it's in Excel, you can do that. If it's in Word like this, you can do it. You can just start to identify different points of data and measure it and give it some sort of a visual deal. We've pulled up the 2012 report that, as you'll see, looks much the same as what the 2009 was. But as Jody said, we continue to tinker it. I've added a month-to-month comparison now so that the board can be seeing the progress that we're making month over month. and being able to track that. So not only does it give you a dashboard report how you're doing right now, but how have we tracked month over month, or as you'll see when we go to the next example, it's year over year to be able to look at that. Another thing that I was able to do at this point, 3 years into this situation now, our financials were much better. There's a lot more green. That's very good. It's always good to go back and show them one from 2-3 years ago so that you can see the difference. But also, as we're scanning down right now, I started to add some additional items in there that weren't just about the financials. We start to look at event performance and add that in and grade that and say, are we red or green or yellow? We start looking at special project performance, so relocation guides, special events. I even put in here to be able to measure month over month to qualify by different color what the points were and are we making progress month over month. All of this to be able to give you kind of what version 1.0 was of our dashboard report. And this worked very well. It kept the board looking at things on a big picture perspective. It gave me and my team instant feedback as to how we were going. But it was a lot of text. As you guys will notice, it is a Word document. There's a lot of text. We all know a lot of our board members aren't going to read all of the financials. They just want something that they can just scan down. If it's green, we're in good shape. If it's yellow, maybe read a little bit. If it's red, we want to focus into that. But eventually I wanted to move to version 2.0. And so what we'll do is we'll start pulling up the next report. This actually was created in Excel and pretty much takes what we were doing beforehand and just put it into more of a graphic form. So we went ahead and put it in a graphic form, a lot of the same categories. We did add in historical information. So we've got 2013, we've got 2014. Also created, we know that as go our budgets, you're going to have events in one budget that'll drive your net income. You may not have events the next month, so this is going to go up and down. What you want to see is your overall average, and so I added in average for the year, and that recalculates by month. Every single month, you'll have an average. So not only can you see month over or year over year in a particular month, and you start noticing trends here. We always have our annual event at January, so income is high there. A little bit lower in February with one event. We usually have no events in March. That's down. But as you notice, consistently, 2014 in this case was over 2013, everything else being equal. But you do have the opportunity, if you notice right here in November, net income was down considerably in 2014. So when you see this, you can then go out there and say, okay, why was it particularly low there? Why was it particularly high in August? So you can look at historical trends, you look at month over month, and be able to look at all of this. As we scan down on this, there are a lot of different things that you can track. Here again, still year over year, month over month. You can look at reserves. At this point in time, reserves was a big focus for us. U.S. Chamber ACCE is recommending 6 months of reserves in all cases, so we wanted to start building to that. When I came in, we had absolutely nothing in reserves, and we slowly started to work on that and build some numbers in there. If we go to the next level, now we start going to a completely new version where we really added in a lot more detail. And don't forget, though, this is over 7-8 years that we've been working on. This is the most recent version that we had for our March 2017. We now have 3 years worth of information that we can look at. We look at averages for the year. We track that. We look at all of these different categories, and as we note down, not only are we tracking now financial information, we're also tracking membership information, we're tracking communication information, all in these 2-3 pages. A couple of interesting stories that I just wanted to share with people that will illustrate some of the things that we've done on this. There was one time, not with a dashboard report, but I was going over board appointments, and I had a chart put together, everybody who is eligible to serve on the board, who is going to be rolling off, who is eligible for reappointment. We had 20 board members. I had ex officio on there, everything marked in different colors. And I'm sitting down and meeting with my chairman, and I'm going on for about 10 minutes explaining to my chair how this chart works, who's rolling off and everything. And after about 10-15 minutes, he looks up at me, and he just kind of looks and cocks his head and says, are there colors on here that I'm supposed to be looking at? And I'm sitting here going, he's messing with me or what? As it turns out, my chairman that year was colorblind, and I had no idea about it. In fact, I had 4 board members that year that were all colorblind. So the lesson from that's learned, and one of the things that I've incorporated into this dashboard is always be prepared in case somebody is colorblind. So if you notice on all of the different categories here, not only are they different colors, but the different shapes. You've got diamonds, you've got squares, you've got circles, you've got triangles. So you got different shapes. So somebody, if they're colorblind, they can still identify the different years. If they are more visual, they can just look at the graph by itself. If they're really locked into colors, you include the color over here. But in case they're colorblind, you include green, red, or yellow. Usually we'll attach a little bit of a brief comment to the right-hand side, just if there's something particular about that month that wants to explain why. In this case, what we're looking at right here, net member growth was down in March, but what was the overall trend? Overall membership was up. So I like to include in a lot of different facets so that just like what we want people not to spend a lot of time going through the financials. We know a lot of them won't. They can look at this and obtain a quick snapshot about how we're doing in a way that is relative to them and what is important to them. This indicates historical. We track historical finances. We look at members. We look at communication, as we see here. It is constantly evolving. So this is what I call version 2.0. One of the things that I'm looking at right now is to try to go to a version, if you will, a 3.0. Sarah was mentioning that think of the dashboard in your car, and you look down and you look at the dashboards to see what all your key metrics are. The whole point of doing the dashboard is to look at your dashboard, then look up through the windshield, and you know what direction you're going. But one of the problems that I noticed with a lot of dashboards is it's continuously looking backwards, in fact, as to what did we do last month? What did we do last year? What did we do 3 years ago? So it sort of goes against the norm of what we're trying to do with the dashboard to constantly be looking backwards. So one of the things that I'm trying to do is create, if you will, version 3.0, where we actually start to identify, Jody had mentioned a strategic plan. You look at your strategic plan, you look at key aspects of your strategic plan. What are those things that if you do X, Y, and Z, you're going to accomplish what you're trying to do, your objectives in your strategic plan. So using a very simple analogy, we all have membership sales out there, and we all know the sales deal. Hey, if you want to get X number of sales during a month, you need to meet X number of visits or X number of cold calls or X number of follow-ups. So what if we could develop a predictive dashboard that says how many cold calls or initial contacts did we have with prospective members? And we track that. We set a goal and we track that and we measure that. And then as you measure things, you look backwards and you say, you look forward to look at that, and you say, if we make this many first calls, we should have success in terms of new members going forward. And that might be something that will either add to this dashboard or might actually replace it, because the theory is if you do X, Y, and Z, whether it be in membership, whether it be in communication, whether it be in events or whatever your key categories and objectives that you're trying to do, you will have achieved success. So that's kind of going to be the version 3.0 that I'm looking to try to develop. It's interesting that we had this call here today going on, this webinar on dashboards, because Sarah had mentioned check with your database providers. And personally, just as a matter of fact, we use WebLink. And WebLink, in fact, at next week's summit that they do, are going to be adding in an add-in feature which concentrates on dashboards and all the things that they have in their database. So they are actually creating dashboards of their own to help people manage information. So everybody is really focused in on dashboards right now. I think it's a great way to plan, measure, predict, hopefully looking forward, and do it in a way that's simple, concise, clear for whoever may look at it, depending on what their fancy is in terms of if they really locked in on numbers or visuals or colors or graphs, and no matter what it is, somebody ought to be able to get this. So as far as time it takes, I have staff do it. She gathers information from about 2 or 3 different people, puts it together into Excel charts, and then boils it down for me. Once set up, I think it takes her about 15, 20 minutes each month. We get this out in the board packet and we send it to our staff for feedback. And at this point in time, I think we'll open it up and see if we've got any questions, or Sarah and Jody want to jump in on anything else.
Sounds great. Thank you, Tony and Jody. I also want to point out that you can obtain some key performance indicators from Dynamic Chamber Benchmarking in the Operations Survey, and I have that report right here as well. Many of you have maybe downloaded that. So these are also good metrics that you can include. Now, this is an annual report, but you can certainly consider this as a dashboard report because it does show you your performance and where your percentile is. So again, and being that this is a Word document, you can adjust and edit it for your own reports, your own, in your own Excel spreadsheet or whatever function you're using, whatever format you're using to develop your dashboard. So that is available from Dynamic Chamber Benchmarking, and that's just a helpful tool. Tony and Jody, could you also mention or address how you've used any of these key performance indicators from the operations survey?
Sure. I'm a big fan of the Dynamic Chamber Benchmarking and have participated in it for a decade before it was dynamic, let's put it that way. And I think that if you can do nothing else, I think a great way to get started in this area is to just simply participate in that. The key performance indicator is a great addition that was added either this year or last year. I think another thing that they added recently, which I think can function this way too, is the trends report. So that is something that I do present once a year to my board, and in fact, we're just taking a look at it right now, and we're starting to see the numbers change in the areas that we're putting focus on. So I think again, if doing it every month is not fit with your schedule, or you're not sure what you should track, at the very least, put your numbers in there and pull this out and share. And I think probably now is as good a time of any to give you this caveat with this. I think a lot of people get scared away or get scared by the data because they're not sure what it's going to show. And I always encourage people, you are far better off to look at it and own it and start to fix it, even if it's not the greatest. So when I first created my dashboard in particular, most of those budget numbers were red. Now I had inherited some of that, but I wasn't really excited about showing everyone that it was red, but I did. We had discussions, much like Tony in the situation that he walked into. It drove a lot of good discussion about, okay, well, here's where our problems is. Here's what we're seeing. And so now, a couple of years down the road, we're seeing more green than we are red, but we do see it. And, it's tempting to want to just, push over it when it's red, but you have to address it and you have to discuss it. So I think you shouldn't be afraid of the numbers, but kind of look at it and see what the story is that they're telling you, and then you know how to fix it.
Yeah, and I agree completely. We've been participating in the benchmarking now for 4 or 5 years at least, I believe. And just as Jody said, and as I alluded to in regard to what I took over, the numbers are what the numbers are. And I think that if you start tracking some numbers, start tracking anything, just put together a graph with the number of members and start with that. No matter what you start with, what you're going to do is you're going to start looking for more and more information. You're going to get comfortable with that. You're going to say, well, I wonder what this is, and you're going to look into that. I wonder what this is for us. You can look at the trends report and start looking at trends that are out there for other chambers your size in your area. Why are you different from them? Why are you similar to them? And then definitely own up to the numbers, what they are. Be transparent with your board, with your staff, your team, and I think that way you get buy-in so that everybody understands what it is that you're working on, what you're facing, and then how do we collectively as a team work on that to move forward. But it builds unity, and you'll just find yourself looking for more and more data. How do you compare? How do you track that? Do we still need to track that? We should be adding this. So I think all of those comments are great comments, and the more you can get your hands on, the better.
Great. Thank you both so much for answering that. I think let's open it up to audience questions, and I believe Susan will help us see some of the questions coming in, and we'll read the question aloud, as Susan mentioned at the start, and then one of us will address. So let's see here. Let me switch my panel to
Sarah, do you want me to read the questions? I can
Sure.
start.
Okay, thanks.
The first question was, and I think this was during Jody's presentation, are you importing the data into Excel from the website? So I'm not sure.
I'm not importing anything into Excel as an automatic drop, but I am entering it in. So I use my Google Analytics numbers, then I just am retyping them. I totally will tell you that there might be a way to make that faster, and if someone creates that, I hope they will tell me and save me some time. But right now, I'm pulling the reports from the different sources and then inputting it into these worksheets that Sarah is showing you right now.
Okay. And then we have another question for you, Jody. What tool did your chamber use to create your dashboards? Did you use Chamber Master?
Yes, we do use Chamber Master. So my membership numbers are coming out of Chamber Master. I mean, Chamber Master does have a dashboard when you log in, and that's certainly something that I use as staff. It didn't exactly track everything that I wanted, so that's why I created this. But my membership numbers come from there. My budget numbers come from QuickBooks. My event registrations come from Chamber Master, so that is all driven by Chamber Master. And then the communications things, they come directly from their sources. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the Google Analytics for the website, and Constant Contact is where I'm getting all of those right now. So that's really what takes the longest on mine, really, is just going into those sources and downloading the data. Once I have it, updating those charts takes 5 minutes.
And that's a great point too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the database will be able to give you that information. You're either pulling it from your database, whether it be Chamber Master, we use WebLink. And then I would also add, which I don't think I really talked about enough maybe, is the industry averages or trend analysis to benchmark against the industry or other chambers your size, whatever you decide you want to do. And that's where benchmarking really comes in, and you can use that to see how you're tracking. So.
And if anyone is interested too, I have the samples library displayed here, and I just did so the category dashboard report and then typed in Richland, and that will get you to Jody's Excel spreadsheet that you can download and use. That's the one I was displaying on screen as well, but you can download and use that as a template. So thanks to Jody for providing that.
Absolutely. And like I said, if you have questions about where I'm pulling and what numbers I'm getting, just send me an email. My email's on the slide.
Okay. There's another question for one or both of you. Do you have your board micromanaging the report and continuing to tweak it away from what you want?
I'll jump in on that one. No, I think one of the reasons that I think it's good to get out in front of this and to create it, if you will, for yourself and then happen to share with the board, I think you'll have less possibility of that happening down the road. If you own the report, you're using it for your purpose, for your team's purposes, and to be transparent with the board, I think there'll be much less tendency for the board to start micromanaging it and telling you what they want. It's always good to get their input in terms of, do you think these figures that we're tracking, do you think these are still relative? What do you think we should have? But at the end of the day, I think that should be for you to be able to manage and leave the management to you. They got to be looking at the big picture.
Yeah, I would agree. I've not had my board micromanage my dashboard at all. So I constantly, I'm the one tweaking it and managing it, I guess. My board chair almost every month will highlight some success on there. He does that of his own accord, but like I said, I've had no one micromanage anything because of it. In fact, I think it leads to less micromanagement because they're seeing a broader parts of the chamber without me having to report and open up a lot of conversation on it.
Yeah, I agree, and it builds that sense of confidence. If you're going to be open with them and show them, as I said before, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you do that from the front and willingly, it develops that trust in you that, hey, you're going to be open and you're not hiding anything from them. So I think it helps.
Okay. Do either of you have suggestions for how to create a dashboard for more qualitative data? I'm sorry, it just slipped away from me here. Like advocacy efforts, policy work, other member benefit projects.
Well, I think if everybody comes up with those, let's all share them out there in the library and we can all benefit from them. I think, you know, as you're looking at that sort of stuff to determine is that a substantial part of your strategic plan of where you're trying to go, it is difficult to come up with those. And that's one of the things that we're struggling here as we try to develop version 3.0, as I call it, from a legislative efforts. You know, do you track how many bills you actually took a position on and did they pass or not pass? That'll show something, but it may not show the true efforts. Possibly you're tracking number of visits to the Capitol, or you're tracking number of contacts with elected officials. We're struggling with that right now on some of those qualitative type areas. Events are a little bit more straightforward. Membership is fairly straightforward. Communication, you can track some of the traffic, open rates, you know, site visits, that sort of stuff, but how do you track the actual benefit of that? One of the things we're looking at is to try to track overall media and to quantify the amount of press coverage that we get and to track that. You could track that based upon inches of press and media cost, but the actual benefit and what that produces, that's a little bit harder. So, but I think that's one of those areas where you have to constantly be looking at it and searching and trying to come up with how do you measure that? Can it be tracked year over year? But we're all working on that, and I think it's a great thing to be striving for.
Yeah, as you can see, mine is not of that at this point. But what I would say to that is, I think the approach is really the same. If you figure out what you want to find out, you know, if it's progress on a certain advocacy goal, then you're already probably tracking it, whether you're doing it diligently every month or in any sort of organized fashion. Think about what are the metrics and the things that tell you if you're making progress on it. And Tony ticked off a bunch when he was talking about advocacy, but if it's your strategic plan, if it's, you know, any of those qualitative things, I think you just need to take the step back and say, okay, what are the few, you know, 2 or 3 data points that are going to tell me whether we're really moving the needle on this topic? And then I think you can create a report that would fit that.
Okay. Sarah, this one's for you. Is there an additional fee to access the dynamic chamber benchmarking data outside membership?
Great question, and thanks for asking. There is no additional fee at all to access dynamic chamber benchmarking. I'll show you where to access it. It's dependent on your ACCE username and password. To get to dynamic chamber benchmarking, click on information and then click here for dynamic chamber benchmarking, or down here, same link with a little bit more information. And then it is ACCE login specific. If you do not know your ACCE login or just need a reminder, you can email me, and our contact information is also in the slideshow, but it's Hero, HERO @acce.org. And then again, I was just showing a view of a demonstration chamber, but you can log in. It's a separate platform, and we do have a live chat as well as support inside the dynamic chamber benchmarking. And we also provide some tools that you can download. That's, again, listed on the information page under dynamic chamber benchmarking. We have a data collection worksheet. That's an Excel spreadsheet that helps you gather what statistics or metrics you need to enter into dynamic chamber benchmarking. And then we also have a quick start guide. Also, the system does go back to 2012, the platform itself, so that's where you can start using it for trend data. And whenever you're in the platform, you can also see exactly your participation level over those years. Reports are entirely free, comparisons are free under the compare by questions, and the only thing you just need to do is have 50% or more of the questions answered for each year, and it's pretty easy to get to that point. Again, happy to help with any questions on that, either offline, email, or call the Hero number, and or use the chat. So thanks for asking.
If I can jump in just real quickly, a shameless plug for the benchmarking, but we mentioned the data and the trends that you can get for your chamber and membership, but I'll just say that this last year, I had ACCE pull a report for me on similar size chambers and in my overall geographic area, and use the information as far as compensation, and it was a huge part in terms of some nice adjustments on the part that my board and executive committee made as far as my compensation. So this can be good for all of the individuals out there, not just the organizations as well. Great information.
And the other thing I'll add on dynamic chamber benchmarking, I would highly recommend you use that data collection worksheet. And I download it every year and I write down all my answers and also how I got those answers if it's not readily obvious. Depending on how you do your financials and things like that, there's a few things I have to, determine what bucket do each of these qualify for, so that, we get money from an affinity program, but it goes into events. So am I really counting that as events income or affinity income? And I just write it down so that next year I don't have to go back and look and think through, and I know that my numbers are the same every year. So I have a file and I just keep them all, and that whenever I'm not here, someone else can kind of back into those numbers as well. So I think that's been helpful to me.
And that's a really good point, what you just mentioned, Jody. When you're actually doing the data entry, there is a tool inside the platform in each data entry page where you can copy over last year's information. So again, it starts somewhere. It's just like the dashboard reports. Start with a particular year, start there, enter your data, do exactly what Jody suggested, recommended. That data collection worksheet is extremely helpful to prepare your answers. And then the system is live 24/7, so you can edit, save, rerun reports anytime, 24/7. And then use the copy prior year feature. And again, if you have questions on that, here's the copy prior year feature. So it's just a link you can click and very easily copy 2015 over into 2016 if you haven't participated yet in 2016. So good point. Thank you.
Okay, I have another question on dashboards. It seems that there could be a temptation to have an increasing number of data points and it becoming less effective as a true dashboard. What are the data points that you do not include, and how do you guard against the dashboard becoming more than a summary page?
So
yeah, and I think, go ahead, Jody. Go ahead.
The limitation that I have imposed on myself is that I don't want this to be any larger than 2 pages, unless I'm doing something, like I said, with a strategic plan, something totally different. So that's the limitation I put on myself. So as I've kind of watched data points, like I said, Twitter is the one I'm kind of wrestling with right now, whether I'm really getting helpful things out of that data. So that would free up some space if I drop that, if I wanted to put something else in, like some more website stats or looking at a deeper dive. So I think you're totally right. It could spin out of control quickly. So I would suggest putting some sort of limit. And then the other way I limit it is just by topic. One side's communication, the other is budget, membership, and events. And those are, to me, the heart. They're the heart of the chamber at this point for us, and those are the most important things for where we were. But as we move forward, it will change. It's a living document.
Exactly, it is living document, and I think a lot of it, Jody mentioned the heart and soul of the chamber. You're always going to be looking at your finance, your membership. Those are going to be key things. We try to limit it to 10 to 12 areas that we're tracking. But I think it's a lot like other aspects of a chamber's organization. You want to go ahead. You don't keep doing things over and over because you've always done things. At some point in time, you say, this isn't relative to where we are anymore. This isn't relative to our community anymore. Let's just shoot that event and get it done with. Sooner or later, I think we've taken website traffic off because that may not be a good thing. We really keyed in on social media. We took website off. So that might be one of those things. So I think if you limit yourself to 10 or 12, you look at your strategic plan, and hopefully you've got probably 3 or 4 focus areas that we're really looking at there. If you can quantify those, then maybe you've got those 3 or 4. You got 2 or 3 in communications, and you got 2 or 3 in membership and finance and kind of limit it to that. But it is easy to get carried away and just have become 50-page document, which doesn't do anybody any good.
Great point. And yeah, that's where to keep that dashboard visualization of your car in your mind, and also always listening to your board and your staff for that input. So great points, Jody and Tony. Thanks.
The other thing I would just add quickly is if it's not a metric that's moving much month to month, I wouldn't include it. You know, this is a monthly dashboard. If it's something that you're just looking at annually, that's in dynamic chamber benchmarking for me. So that's another way that I kind of evaluate if the needle's not moving much month to month, it's not worth it to me to put it on here. But if it's something that's up and down and kind of shows you some progress, then I think it's worth including on it.
Okay, well, we're just about out of time. Sarah, we had a question or two about how to find these dashboard reports that you've been showing, you know, the various examples from both Jody and Tony. So if you want to just remind folks how to find those examples on our website, I think that would be helpful.
Great. Definitely. And the links are also included in the PowerPoint handout, and that will also be posted online under professional development. But you can easily click on information, and then again, just like dynamic chamber benchmarking, you can click here. Here's the samples library. So both Frisco and Richland area chambers dashboards are right here under samples. And then you can click on the category for dashboard, click that, select go, and then if you know you want to see what Frisco is doing as example of today, you can just type in the keyword or the chamber name, and then those reports will be right here. Samples library is ACCE username login specific, so you will just need that also at your disposal. And then the samples library works the same way where I was showing the PDF reports here. Those all came directly from the samples library, and you can just download right away from the link that's shown here. We also have a Chamberpedia page that's included in the handout as well on annual reports and financial reports. That is, again, Chamberpedia. And we do have an entire section on the dashboard reporting, as well as other samples from libraries that pull from from the samples library, and then also articles and other resource guides on that Chamberpedia page. Again, all of that is in your PowerPoint handout.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jody and Tony, and thank you, Sarah, for that great presentation, that advice, experience. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for your questions and your participation. Just a few notes before we sign off. Remember that the webinar is being recorded, and I'll post the recording along with a copy of the presentation that Sarah put together and also the handout that she has. And that will be on our ACC webinar page. It should be there no later than Monday the 1st. And you can find that page by clicking on professional development on our website, www.acce.org, hovering over ACC University Online, and then clicking on A to Z webinars. Oops, there we go. If you click on there and then scroll down, you will see all kinds of, there we go, all of our recent webinars listed in order of recency, and click on the thumbnail and to get the recording that you need, and click on the presentation slides to download those. Our next live ACC University webinar will be next Thursday, a week from today, May 4th. ACCE Senior Vice President Chris Mead will lead a panel of your peers to discuss tales of renewal, stories of chambers that have turned themselves inside and out to grow and prosper. So come listen to that webinar, be inspired, learn a bit. Chris will be joined by Candace Boothby, President and CEO of the Noonan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce, and Robert Height Jr., President and CEO of the Glendale Chamber of Commerce. So we hope you can join us then. Again, that's a week from today, Thursday, May 4th at 2 p.m. East Coast time. So thanks again to Sarah, Jody, and Tony for your presentations. Thanks to everyone for joining us this afternoon. I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.